Hello. Hopefully you can all hear me. I can see Kim. I can see Annie. Hello. Hello, Karen. Who else have we got with us? Oh, Jammy's in. Jammy's definitely in. So I'm waiting to get the thumbs up that you can indeed hear me. Mike's pondering it. He's pondering it. Excellent. Right, you can. So, well, who else have we got? Team Western Productions. Hello. You're here to write a book found years ago while you were in college. Oh. Hello, Tish. Good to have you with us. Right, we're all in. I believe we are all ready. So I will get on with it. Right. We are good to go. So hello and welcome. Today we are designing a photo book. Now we're broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p or watching on catch-up in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. Make sure you've got the red flash on it. While you are down there, there is the like button. We love the like button. Hopefully, you will find something today that you enjoy and you will be prepared to click the like button. I'm still Elaine Giles, believe it or not. If you've never been here before, hello and welcome. I've been using Affinity since it first came out in beta in 2014, and I've used it every day since then. And while I'm a Mac user, everything today, let me check. Yes, absolutely everything today works on Windows as expected. So the only thing to remember is if I say command, it probably means control if you are on Windows. So what have we got? Well, we've got loads today. So much, I couldn't even fit it all into one show. But the first thing to think about with a photo book is there's no point going to find a printer after you've designed it. No, that needs to happen first. So there's a lot of pre-thinking needs to go on, and I'm going to cover all of that and hopefully clarify quite a bit. I've already had quite a lot of questions about how to set a book up properly. So that is what we will be looking at. We've also got all of the different options for setting up books, working with specifications, and of course, you're going to want to know how to design some layouts. So we will get onto that. But the first part of this is setting yourself up for success. Then we've got image placeholders and so much more. Couldn't even fit it on the slide, including some free assets for you. In fact, they're layouts. So a lot of the layouts that I show you today, that I will have a copy of the layouts for you to play with. Now, as I've said, there's so much I can't fit it all into one session. So I have already sorted out the next session, which will be advanced photo book techniques. So not actually designing the book itself, but designing the layouts inside the book and using features of Affinity in advanced ways. So that one will be coming up shortly. Now, questions. We love questions. Put your questions in the chat as we go. We will collect them ready for the Q&A at the end of the session. If you can remember to put a Q at the beginning, it'll make it a little bit easier to do that. The other thing is, if you're making reference to a dialog box that I'm talking about, please let us know in the question which one, because we have a 30-second delay on YouTube. I don't know what they think mischief we'd be up to, but there is this delay. And obviously, by the time we get the question, we could have looked at 3 dialog boxes since then. So just give us a little bit of context. That would help greatly. Now, we love to read the chat. Please keep it friendly in there. I'm not affiliated with Canva or Affinity, never have been. Just a customer of both, and that is it. So, designing photo books is what we're starting with today. The most important thing to think about with a photo book, unlike other documents that you may design and create in Affinity, with a photo book, things have to be done in the right order. So there is pre-production, where you have considerations to think about that all need decisions making on them before you move into the production stage. Can you go back and change something in retrospect? You can, but it could have unforeseen knock-on consequences. So I would stick to doing this in the right order if possible. And then, of course, you have post-production considerations as well. But we'll start off looking at the pre-production things that include the book size, the type of the book, even things that you may never have had to have considered before with any other document type you've created, like the paper type and the page finish. What cover do you want on it? Do you want anything embossing on it? Are you putting it in a presentation box? Because if you are, that will need designing as well. So it's all about pre-production, getting everything right before you start designing it rather than after. It really is easier to get it right from the start. So I will show you 2 examples here of how to start. So where's my mouse pointer gone? That's a good start. On we go. So this is Photobox. I'm not recommending Photobox particularly. It's just an example that I can show you how to set about this. So first of all, do your due diligence in terms of what you think you want in terms of sizes. If you do that, then you can start looking for production houses or companies, print companies, that can accommodate exactly what you want. So in here, I've already clicked on Photobooks. So Photobooks is at the top here. And what that then does is show you all of the options you have from this particular company. So it starts off with the large landscape. You've then got classic rectangles, different covers. You've got those presentation boxes. You've got all of these options to go at. So the first decision is what size. You'll also see in here that they have pages. So this medium soft cover square's got 60 pages. This one has 120. Now, you may be used to in your documents, especially if they're digital, just creating pages as and when required. But for this, you don't want to be 2 images short, nor do you want to have 2 images you've absolutely got to fit in there and you've run out of pages. So all of that is best considered at the beginning. Right, if we just then have a look at one of these. So we look at this and think that's not bad. Right, you click on it and you then get more details. Now, obviously at the moment, coming up to Christmas, everything's to do with codes for money off, discounts, delivery deadlines. But in here, you will find all of the options that are important to you when it comes to setting up your photo book inside Affinity. So this is saying glossy pages will be 16 pence extra. You can have a lay flat binding. Now, the binding is one of the most important things. I get the most questions from people who are saying, how do I create a wraparound cover? Or how do I specify the spine? Well, I can't tell you because I don't know. It depends on how many pages you've got in there and the binding type and the thickness of the pages. So all of that comes together to give you the correct size, which is why with setups like this site here, it will tell you you can have an unlimited number of photos, but you can only go to 120 pages. The book literally cannot be bigger than that. The cover options on this one is a photo, but it's a hard cover. It's not a wraparound that will come off. It's a hard cover on there. And then you've got your paper options in there. And the lay flat option is 55 pence a page. So it's the bottom one that is the lay flat one. Is it worth it? That depends on the photos. If you have a lot of spreads that go across pages, which this one does, then it may be worth it for you because the alternative is detail could be on the crease. I always used to make a joke many years ago when we were having deliveries. We were on the crease in the A to Z, the paper A to Z. Parcels very seldom got here. So given how much you might lose or how skewed the image would look, maybe it is worth paying a little bit extra for the lay flat binding. But what options you have will depend on what you choose. And then inside Affinity, you marry up the features of Affinity to your specification. And that is how you get your perfect photo book. So that is one site and how it tells you what the options are. Another site, very popular, is Blurb. This one has different options. So this one has an image wrap hardcover. It has a soft cover. It has various other options. It too has a lay flat. Obviously, they're quite expensive. This one is a linen cover, but it has that wraparound cover that they're calling a dust jacket. Now, if you are tempted by one of those, heads up, I will show you how to design the wraparound cover in the Advanced Techniques session. But these are the options you've got here. Now, this one gives you videos, so you can actually see these books as well. And although I know you're probably sitting there with hundreds of photos and thinking, let me just get into Affinity, please don't. Don't do that. Do take the time, work through these options, watch the videos, and that way the finished product will be far superior than if you dived in and then you get married to the layout and it doesn't fit when it comes to the print. So do all of this first. So they're just a couple of examples. I don't use either of those. I will show you the company I actually use when I print something down the line. But those are two to be thinking about at the moment. Right, the next things. In pre-production, you have 4 main options when it comes to creating your photo book. First of all, you could have a plugin. Now, that means that the print company you choose provides an application or a plugin for InDesign or Photoshop. I've yet to see one for Affinity, but it has the options that you have for that built in. So you go in, you use this plugin to actually design your layout. That isn't what we're doing here. The second option is your downloadable templates. There are many, many downloadable templates, but very few of them for Affinity. The other option you've got is a specification. Now, usually when you have a specification, which is what I will show you today, you tend to produce a PDF, and then the PDF goes off to print. The other option you've got is to create completely from scratch, which you can do, but could be quite dangerous because, as I've just said, you wouldn't, if you literally have no idea what you're doing, it's unlikely you'll make something that will work in print. But you could start completely from scratch if you wanted to. Right, so let's have another look. This time we'll be having a look at the bookmaking tools that we have. So the tools that are available, this is Blurb again. In here, you've actually got separate tools. So they have an application called Bookwrite. You can actually download that. It works on the Mac, it works on PC, and it's a desktop app. And you download it, and instead of using Affinity, you use their application. That is going to be quite safe in terms of it's hard to go wrong when the application won't let you. Now, the downside of that is you are pretty much stuck with the layouts that they allow you to do inside the application. The other downside of it is, if you're in Affinity, you can create a print version and a digital version. You can customize it to the nth degree. You would probably not be able to do that in an application from a company like Blurb. You also have an online tool. So if you happen to be on Linux and you want to use this, there is an online version of Bookwrite. Now, the other options I talked about was a plugin. And there are plugins available here. So there is a plugin for InDesign, and no, it won't work with Affinity. There's also a plugin for Photoshop and Lightroom Classic. And there's a couple of extra options down here as well, where if you have designed your own book, you can use the uploader to upload it. And they also have a totally separate plugin and an online tool if what you're creating is wall art. So if you want a canvas creating from any of your photos, they have different tools available for that. So it's very easy to get completely overwhelmed by this with like, whoa, I just wanted to use Affinity. What's all this? You're not forced to use this. This is if it's there for people who don't have Affinity, who don't have InDesign, or don't have a clue how to use them and create something usable. So they are an option, but I'm assuming you want to use Affinity. So let's get back into here. So the pre-production options we had were, first of all, a plugin. There are no plugins that I am aware of, certainly not for the major companies that are working with Affinity at the moment. Now, one thing you could think about, how well this would work, I don't know. My experience isn't good so far. Possibly you could send it to Canva for print, but I have found problems with it. So your second option's a downloadable template. There aren't many of those available for Affinity. But in the advanced session that I'm going to do, who knows? There could be one to download. You never know. Now, there are plenty of templates for InDesign. So again, in the advanced session, I will show you how to take an InDesign template and convert it for Affinity. But today, no, we're not going to use a downloadable template. We will use a specification. So this is where you have a set of rules and you create whatever you want in Affinity, and you then create a PDF from it to send for print. I'll also show you how to start completely from scratch as well. Now, in the production phase, once we've gone through all of that and we've made our decisions, the production phase involves the page design, the page layouts you want, and everything Affinity related. So that's the fun time, I would imagine, when you're laying this out and imagining how fabulous it's going to look when you've produced it, which takes us on to post-production. So this is the final output. This is where you need beta testers, eyes on it to make sure there are no spelling mistakes or anything else like that, bits missing off the images. That's the time you may notice something in the image you want to edit, and Affinity is perfect for that. Then there's sending it for print. So there's the PDF and the upload way, and there's a very, very manual way as well. But the thing that seems to freak most people out is working to a specification. So what does a specification look like? Now, virtually every online service I've seen provides a specification. They try and steer you away from it, to be honest, because it's easier for them if you use their application. There's a lot less can go wrong. But that is an example of what a specification looks like. So on the left-hand side, it tells you what book it's talking about. So that's a large landscape, hardcover, image wrap, standard paper with 40 pages. So you do need to know all of that before it can give you the rest of the specification. Now, actually, this specification is split into two. The top half of it is the page specification. And then, starting just above the halfway point, is the cover specification. You could also have a third set of instructions for print. So don't expect every specification to look like this. It won't. This is just an example. But some terms that you would need to be familiar with here include page size, trim line, bleed, margins. They are terms that we use in Affinity. With this, there is a couple of gotchas, but at least knowing what a margin is, what the page size is that you need, what bleed you need, it's a good starting point. Now, where do you get these specifications from? Well, you could make your own, but I would suggest your starting point really needs to be your print service, because they know exactly how they're intending to print this. So I would always go to the print service and check out the print service first. I would also check the help area. There may be extra information in there, but ultimately your starting point is your print service. So, for example, there is a calculator on Blurb. So let's have a look at that will calculate it for you. So notice it says this page is for bookmakers creating PDFs in applications other than InDesign, because if you're using InDesign, we've got a plugin for that. And all the plugin will do is automatically set everything that you can set manually in Affinity. It's just a fraction easier. But what you do in here, you have, first of all, to select your book size. So there's mini square all the way through to large square. Now, I think what I did was large landscape, wasn't it? I think I said that one. So when you make a change in here, this updates on the right-hand side to give you an indication of what you're working with. You've also got other options in here, including trade books and magazines. And then it gives you some information about getting started. Now, this is information that is important. So it's telling you to use the specification calculator. Well, that's what we're doing. You need to submit an even number of pages. Now, that is something that throws people slightly. I've had that so often with church newsletters. it looks fine on the screen, and then they've come to print it, and it doesn't divide by an even number, so it doesn't print very well. Then it's telling you need to use 100% black. It's telling you if you've got complex vectors, they're going to need to be rasterized. So this is information that you may be tempted to skip, but don't skip it. Just work through it once, and then it will become second nature. It also tells you here that Photoshop is available, and Word, you could use Word and create these PDFs. I don't think Word is the best way to create a photo book, but they're telling you it's an option. But the thing that we're interested in is in this second tab, which is the specification. So this is why this is a calculator. It enables you to choose a cover type and then specify the number of pages. So let's say 40 in there. Choose a paper type. So you've got standard, you've got premiums, you've got all kinds of different finishes on it. I'll leave that set to standard. And then what unit of measurement you would like to use. Now I'm in the UK, so I would go for centimetres. I find inches trickier to work with. We were just about switching from imperial to metric when I was at school. So I can handle both, but I prefer centimetres, it's more logical. Once I've set that up in there, so I've only really given it 4 options at that point. I've just given it 4 pieces of information. I then click Get Measurements, and it creates the specification for me. And that is what I took a screenshot of and put in the presentation. Right, so what it's telling us is this was the large landscape, so it's got that. And then, as I said, it has separated here the page specification, which is in the top part, and the cover specification, which is the bit in the middle there. You'll notice in the centimetres that we've got 27.622. I would suggest if I selected inches, that might look less complicated, but I'll leave it set like that. When we get into Affinity and we start working with it, Affinity will round it down to make it look easier to work with. But as long as you have the exact figures that you have typed in, it's hard to go wrong, and you don't want to go wrong with this. Now, the other thing that you will need to think about from in here is this appeared at the bottom. And this is showing you where the bleed line is, where the trim line is, and where your safe text boundary is. So all of this is available in Affinity. The colours are different by default, but if you want to match this, if you want the bleed line to be red, you can customise all of that in Affinity. One thing to notice, which I'll point out when we move into the specification, is notice here where it's talking about the safe text boundary. What would you call that? Normally, people call that the margin. But they have deliberately used a different term other than margin here, and I will explain to you why they have done that. But if you're thinking, what on earth's the safe text boundary? To normal people, it's a margin, except when you're making a photo book, and then it's not. But that's what it means. So that is where you would get a specification from. How do you use that specification? Well, there is our specification again. So it was the large landscape with 40 pages. And what you need to do is translate from the specification to the new file dialog inside Affinity. So we already have some presets in Affinity. It's unlikely any of them are going to match precisely the specification that you have now downloaded. So, but that's not a crisis, because the options on the right-hand side, you have everything in there that you would need to be able to translate into it. I would suggest that if you are then going to make more large landscapes, it's probably worth, rather than typing that lot in multiple times, to create a large landscape preset. Now, the difference between a preset and a template, so you might be thinking, well, I'd make a template. A preset has no content. A template does have content. So while it's handy to have a preset, if you're going to make large landscape books and you're going to want things like captions, text styles, all the things that Affinity can do, a template's probably a better bet. But it is worth creating a preset. So we will go in and actually have a look at doing just that. So we will come back to that shortly. but we'll get it out of the way for now and go into Affinity. Where's Affinity disappeared to? Or are you just taking all day to open? Because I'm live. There we go. Right, so in here, it's opened up on the home. You click on the plus and that will take you through to where you can work with these presets. Now, I have a specification that I will work to, that I will put here so we can reference it. So this is a specification. It is in two halves, if you notice. We have the page specifications at the top and then DPIs and colour requirements at the bottom. So how do we translate this? Well, the first thing it's telling you is that the final exported PDF width and height will be 303mm by 216mm. What do we do with that information? Absolutely nothing, because that is the final information. But if we look at the page size stroke trim line underneath, that is the correct specification. That is what you type in. Now, why is there 6mm difference? And that would be the bleed area, which is 3mm on the top, bottom and outside edge. So you will get a final PDF of 303 by 216, but that is not what you specify in here. You specify the page size in here. Right, so at the moment this is A4. I'm going to set this up, so we'll put it over there because it doesn't matter how it's set up in here. We will create a preset from this. But the DPI, 300. Now that was down the bottom, but yes, it was set to 300. Then we've got the width. So notice here that this is talking about the width, but it's talking about it the other way. So that is 297. The height is 210. So that is matching this second row. Then we have the bleed on our spec, but in Affinity, the next thing it needs to know is colour format. So you will find that you're going up and down your spec. I would suggest working to Affinity, and that way you know you've not missed anything. But a good practice is work to Affinity and work down the list. And then when you're done, go to the specification and work down it in the specification order. So this needs to be set to CMYK, which is there. We do have colour here. So at the moment, it's saying US web coated. That's not the one my printer uses. It uses Fogra 39. So choose that from there. Do I want a transparent background? Do I want to create artboards? Now, those are Affinity elements. They are not referred to in the specification. Right. Image placement is embedded, but they're talking about fonts, embedding fonts, which isn't an option in here at the moment. But looking down the rest of this, do we want multiple pages? Well, we do. Although it doesn't say in the specification, we knew that we had 40. So I would put in there the number of pages. You can always change that later. It's just good practice, have it there at the beginning. Do you want a default master? Again, it's nothing to do with the specification, but it's probably a good idea. So that is a master page. Now then, these are relevant, the margins and the bleed. Now, we'll put the bleed in first, even though it's not in the right order, which is 3. So you toggle the bleed on, and then you have 4 options: inner, outer, top and bottom. And it's telling you that the top, bottom and outside edge need to be 3mm. If at the moment, so this is what happens by default, if I type in 3 in any of those fields, it will apply to all of them because of the chain icon. They are linked together. So if you break the chain, so click that, turn it off, because on the inside edge, the bleed needs to be 0. So in our inner here, that actually needs to be 0. So I had to unhook those to get one that was different. And then we've got the margin and the safe boundary set to 6. Okay, so turn the margins on, and it looks like that is 6 all the way round. So I'll put that in, and we've created it based on that spec. What I'm suggesting you then do is go through this, jumping around in here, just to make sure it's correct. But let's assume that it is correct. Right, this one is saying it's A4, but we know that it's our photo book. So I'll put photo book, and I'll put LL for large landscape. it isn't, it's A4. In fact, I'll put A4 and that way we'll know what it is. Right, and then I hit Create Preset. That adds in my preset at the top. Oh, I've done a large landscape one. So there's my preset at the top. If you've used a previous version, you will notice that you can't group these as nicely as you used to be able to. All your custom presets are at the top. So just under my presets. Very annoying. Hopefully they'll fix it. We used to be able to organise those into photo books and different types of things, where at the moment everything's just dumped together. But we've done it. So at that point, create the document. And there is our perfectly formatted photo book ready to get going. Or is it? Well, one thing that you do need to think about at this stage. For the front cover, that is absolutely fine. But when you start moving into the pages here, like these, let's have a little bit of room here. This margin may not be what you want. Now remember, it said text safe area, safe boundary. Well, it's a margin, and normally that's absolutely fine. But in this circumstance, it might not be. And here's why. The margins, not only do they represent your safe area, but they also are dual purpose in Affinity. So if we go in to our view and guides, we can see, hang on, what page are we on? Right, in here, why are my margins not showing? Oh, straight away I've got an issue. Right, maybe they're coming through from the master page. They could be. Right, I just need to get to a point where we can see them in the guides, so I can explain to you what the problem is. Right, that's better. Right, so what we have in here is margins of 6mm in blue, and that's why we can see them in here. We zoom into this, the colours are different, but we have all of the elements that we needed for printing. So let me just show you that that was what the spec talked about. The bleed line, well, that's a sort of purpley colour on here, a lavender colour. Then there's the black line, which is the trim. That's the edge of the page there. And then we have magenta for the safe text boundary, which in our case is showing as blue. So it does mirror this perfectly, just that the colours are different. These are the colours that you'll find in InDesign. So we've done it right then, have we? Well, this is the issue. In your photo book, you may want to have layouts that you are predictable. So you're not randomly placing these on different pages in different places. You want them to line up. And the easiest way to do that is to use column guides. So let's say we wanted, let's say 4 columns in one row with a 4mm gap. That is what that looks like. That's fine if you're working to the margins. But it's a photo book, so it is much more likely that you would want something that looks slightly different. Now, in here at the moment, the master page is applying to the others. So what I'm going to do is just get a page here with no margins on it at all. I will create some margins. We'll put them at 10, but they were at 6, weren't they? So we'll make them 6. And I'll show you the problem. Right, we had 4 or 5 columns, didn't we? So let's put that in. And it's going to the margin, which is what you would expect. That's what you've told it to do. But in a photo book, you might want far more negative space, in which case you would need to change the margins. So if those margins were much bigger than that, they were 50, the guides are married to the margins. But you still need a way to mark the text safe area, the safe boundary. And you cannot have 2 sets of margins on one page. So that was a problem. Here's how we fix it. So I will move, I'll do it in here and then I'll do it in the other file as well. So you get to see it twice. So let's go into the guides. Right, easiest way to do this is to set the margin to the safe boundary first, and then drag on some guides. So I'll close that and actually use the margins I've set to snap the guides to. So I'm dragging from the ruler and I'm creating a set of guides. Guides are not married to the columns that we have. So now, if I go back in and view the guides, and I set this back to what I wanted, which was huge, now we've got the best of both worlds. We have a way to mark the safe boundary, and we have a way to constrain the columns within a margin so we can use that for layout. Now, if you're thinking, what on earth? Right, obviously I'm going to want to lay out some pictures. So if I wanted to lay out 2 pictures, but lay them out to a predictable guide, that is what I mean. That is what I want to do. And that is how you do it. Otherwise, you can't use the column guides. The guides are not available to you because they're not marrying up to the area that you want to work with. Right, so that was an example. What does that look like back in here? Well, it's on a master, so it applies to all of them. So I'm going through to the master. I've got my 4 columns and I have my margins. What I need to do is to set the guides. So in View Guides, I'm going to go into there. I could do that in here by typing them in if they're in a predictable location. But the other way to do it is just to drag them on. So I'm dragging them on, and because the margins are there, it's snapping to the margins. So I'm not concerned that it's in the wrong place. I know it's in the right place. I need 1 for the top, 1 for the bottom. But for the verticals, I need the left, I need the right-hand side of the left page. So I'm going to need 4 of these. I'm going to line them up like that. Now, at this point, there's no difference between the margins and the guides. What we do want to do is to change the guides. So let's change the columns, the margins rather. So we'll make that the 50 that we had, and that will constrain that to the middle and allow me to work with that. If you're looking at this, you may be thinking to yourself, that's odd. The margins and the guides are both blue. If you want to change the colour, you can do that. So inside the guides here, you have a colour for the margins and a colour for the guides. If you want to change the colour of one or both, feel free to do so. If you're used to using InDesign, you may want to use InDesign colours. It doesn't matter, it's completely optional. You can still tell what's going on here without changing them. Which of these are which? Well, this must be the margin because margins constrain the columns. And these must be guides because they cross at the edges and margins do not. So that's the difference between them. That is how we would set that up like that. So it's sort of the opposite to what you would normally do in every other type of document. But the point of it will become clear as I start designing layouts, how important it is and how useful it is to have those columns constrained and actually use them. Right, so just to reiterate that is what the margins look like. Notice no crossover in the corner. But when you bring your guides on, your guides do cross over in the corner. You don't want to use the guides to represent your content because you need to use the columns for your content. So the solution, yes, there is a solution here, luckily, is to swap them over. So where they're crossing at the corner, you're using guides. Your margins do not cross over. And if you're wondering why in that one the guides are dashes, that's because they are on the master page and that is how they show on a standard page. And that is what that looks like. Right, okay. So having got that sorted out, we can go through and start adding the photos at last. Now, on this one, what I've done is I have used a master page. And that master page is applied to all of these pages. That is great, given that it's got my safe area on it. But there's a possibility on this that I don't want all of these layouts to have such wide margins. So it would probably make sense to call this safe boundary. Where are we? If I could spell it, I'd be dangerous. There we go. Safe boundary, and take away from this the guides and put the the margins, set them on a per page basis as I'm designing each page. If this is a page layout that I want to use a lot, then absolutely make a master page of it. We will be looking more at that in the advanced session. But for the moment, I'm going to go into View Guides. And in here, I'm going to take away the margins. I am also going to take away the columns. We don't need any of those. So now what is on the master is just the safe boundary. As we look at this on here, as I said, it's dashed because it's coming from the master. But that is set globally because every single page has the same safe boundary. Right, so now we can start playing. I'm using photos. Oh, that's great, isn't it? Right, so we'll start with the first page. And we want to put a cover on that. Now, the best way to do it is to use a picture frame and draw that out. Now, this is the trim. So where that's coming from, that is the front cover. For digital output, that's absolutely fine. But the bleed is an extra area that you bleed your content into. So I'm pulling it up, so it's going to the corners. And that is where the cut line is. If the cut line is a fraction off, you won't have white showing at the edge. It's a safety measure. That's what the bleed is for. So I've put the picture frame on there as a picture placeholder, and that is the best way to work with images inside Affinity. Now, I have been asked why can't I just dump an image on the screen? Well, you can if you want to, but that picture frame will give you superpowers, and that's why it's worth using. Another question I've had is, well, why can't I just use a shape and then mask it? Well, you can if you want to make your life more difficult, but did I mention that the picture frame has superpowers? So just use the right tool for the job. Everything's far easier if you do that. So what we can do with this is, we'll show you that I've got some stock open here, and we're going to use some wedding pictures. Right. Any of these, this is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to drag that and drop it onto the picture frame. Right, that's why we're using a picture frame. So at the edges, you can see we've got it going into the bleed at the top, down the side, and across the bottom. We also have a couple of tools here. In fact, there's more than just two. We have this in the middle where we can move the image. So, for instance, we've got a bit of a gap at the bottom where there's no flowers, but the flowers head off at the top. So, if we move that, we can move that image down and bring all of the flowers into view. Another thing we could do is use the slider at the bottom, and this will enable us to zoom in or zoom out. Now, obviously, zooming out, you've then got no image and you've got a gap on either side. The frame is still there, the picture tool. Picture frame is still there, and it still has the picture in it. It's just that it has a gap. So I would make sure that is at least as wide as that. So those are two tools that you have. You also have the option, so let me see if I can find, I had an image of some hands making a heart, which has probably disappeared. Never mind, we'll use this one. Right, when I hover over the cog in the middle that lets me move it, I also bring this to life, which is rotating it. So if you wanted to make it a bit quirky, you could rotate it. Now notice that's had a knock-on effect. It's not really wide enough. So what I can then do is use the bottom slider to make it wider, and I'm making it wider because I have actually rotated it somewhat. And I need to make sure there's enough photo there like that. But if that showcases the flowers better, then that is one way to do it. Now, the alternative to that, if we take the same image and just dump it on the page, now we've got a lot more work to do. We can see the image is hanging off the page. We'd need to crop the image. We'd need to maybe put a shape on and then mask it too. Why are you doing all of that? Don't do that. But you could if you wanted to. But that's why I would put the picture frame on the page first. You can do so much with the picture frame before you even put an image in it. So if we were laying that out on this page, so it's exactly the same proportions as the other one. One thing to think about is that if you go into preview mode, which is Control and W, you lose the fact that there's a picture frame there at all. So if you've done your layout and you've carefully placed all these picture frames and you just want to see what it'll look like, you'd be really annoyed at that point. So let's bring it back. And with it selected, you can actually put a colour in there. So I would put something like a very palish pink in there. So we've got a pink to start with. We haven't really got a pink, have we? Let's see what we've got in here. Well, we certainly want it darker than that. But a kind of pink in here, but fairly pale. So just enough to see it. Right, if we do that, so make sure we've got the picture frame selected. And, oh, I need to go and do it again. Right, come on, where's the pink? There's the pink. Like that. All right. Then when you command Control and W, the picture frame stays there and you can visualize it. It has the cross in it until you add an image. It has no impact whatsoever when you add the image. It doesn't make the image pink or anything. It's just there as a placeholder to indicate to you. So always use a picture frame. It's far easier. Right, now, next layout we'll do. This is another one that people ask a lot about. How do I do a panoramic right across it? Couldn't be easier. Picture frame. Go from the bleed in the top left to the bleed in the bottom right and put a picture in it. It's as simple as that. So what have I got that would work like that? It would need to be something quite wide, wouldn't it? And I think I've got some images in Eagle that would work with that. If you don't know what Eagle is, it's an asset manager, and I'm just using it today to put all the images that I want to use in it of various sizes. And that is what Eagle looks like. So if you've seen Adobe Bridge, it's like that. That one would work well, wouldn't it? Let's use that one. So all I'm doing from Eagle is dragging and dropping it, just like I did from the stock panel. And then you've got all of the tools again that you can use. So if you want it up a bit, you want it bigger, you can do all of that. And that is panoramic right across the page. That would work quite well for a wraparound. But think about it with the wraparound. You don't want the just MA on the back of the book. So if I was going to do that, I would be moving it to the right-hand side. But more on that in the advanced session. So it's that simple to create a full spread. Right, let's move on to the others. All right, next things to think about. Now we're going to bring back the margins, because you could work on this page and it would be absolutely fine if you did that. I'm just going to save this in case of calamities. It wouldn't surprise me if it crashed. Right. You could use that layout as is. You've got everything on it that you need. You have the bleed on it, you have the cut line on it, you have the safe area on it. Everything you need is there. But if you start laying things out, so the thing not to do is to don't start dragging images on and then try and deal with them later, because it gets messy. Work with the picture frames first. So go and draw some picture frames. You might say to yourself, yeah, that looks absolutely fine. And I want one next to it. So I'm holding the Option key down and pulling. And that doesn't look bad either, but they're not lined up. That's okay. They will line up if you start moving them, as long as you have snapping turned on in the top toolbar. So that is off by default. Heaven knows why. Make sure that's turned on, and I have it snapping to pretty much everything. And that way I can make layouts like this. Now, the only problem I've got with that is that isn't centered. So then I have to select the whole lot. When I move them into the center, I get the green line and the red line. So that's perfect. That's great. But to do that on another page, I'd have to copy all of that and then constantly make sure it's in the right place. What if I then wanted 8 photos and not 4? But I want them constrained to the same area with the same margins. Yeah, well, let's get some margins. Let's do that. So let's do it right. So what we would need to do is to go into View, down to Guides, and here's our margins. And we had margins of 50 millimeters, which is 2 inches. They were huge. And in the columns, well, we had 2 images by 2 images. So columns 2, rows 2, set the gutter much smaller than that because we're working quite tight. And there we go. And that has done that on both sides of this. And now you can go and get your picture frame. And as you add it on, because I've got snapping turned on, it makes it very quick to add these. Notice that I'm drawing up from the corner, because if I go here, I get the rotate option, and I do not want to be rotating this. So if I work from the outside corner, it snaps and I'm good to go. At that point, I have 4 picture frames. I can just copy them and paste them and move those into place, and they will work on the other side. And then all I need to do is to put some images in them. So as I say, I have got some wedding style images. So let's just drag some images in. Lots of booze at this wedding, isn't there? There we go. So just drag and drop them in. So it is much faster if you use the picture frame. A lot of people say to me, I don't want to do that. I want to drag the photos on. I want to crop them. Yet we can do all of that. It just takes far longer. All of these are still editable. All you need to do is click and move them around. If you want to zoom into the label of the champagne, you can do that. It doesn't make it more difficult. In the long run, it makes it easier. Now, I said, what if you wanted on this one to have 8 images? Well, let's go back into View and go to Guides. And this time we do need to put the margins in, because our guides are constrained to margins. So you won't have any guides at all if you don't sort your margins out properly. But in the columns here, this time we would need 4. And in the rows we would need, I said 8, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we would need 2 there. Right, so we've got 8 blocks. Again, 8.5, which is the default, is a little bit big, so I'll make it 4. And OK. Now, you can get silly with this. So before we worry about the 8, let's move on to the next page and let's have a lot more. But this time, I'm going to make the margins 25, which is 1 inch. And this time in here, I would want more of these. So let's have them by 8. Let's set that to 4. All right. And if we wanted 16, we'd have them as 2. But then that would be, they'd be very tall and skinny. So I reckon in there we could have them square like that. Now, I've done this for a reason. Obviously, that is a little bit too small. I think you would probably not go for that size. But I'm showing you this for a reason. We saw with these that I drew them out. Who fancies drawing them out on here? We'd be there all day. Now, it is something you would only need to do once, but even so. Right, we will draw the first one out, and then we will contemplate how to quickly fill the rest. Now, when I've demonstrated before, I have demonstrated something called the Move and Duplicate box. This is the fastest way to do that. It's faster than Power Duplicate. But in this circumstance, it's not the way to go, because I'd have to do the maths. I would have to know horizontally and vertically where precisely that needed to be. And the maths, not nice, because it's not 20 millimetres square. It's 27.4. What's that times 8? I don't know, and I don't care. Right, let's do it faster, but not using the fastest way. The faster way is Power Duplicate. So if I duplicate that and move it into place, I should be able to duplicate again and it work. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm dragging it at this point to get it lined up in the second one, and then Command and J. And that will create me another copy, the same distance from this copy as this copy was from the first instance I had. That's what Power Duplicate does. You may be tempted to drag this down to here, get it in place, and then do the same. Don't do that. Don't need to do that. Draw around the whole lot, hold the Option key, pull it down and get it into place. You've got all of those lines flashing up, showing you're in the right place. And then Command and J. And now we've got a whole page of them. At that point, select, hold the Option key, drag them across to the other side. That was way faster, wasn't it? And you do exactly the same thing here. It's just that this example it's much clearer why you would use power duplicate. But in that circumstance, power duplicate is faster than the duplicate and move because you have to do the maths. If the maths are simple, fine, then do it that way. That was how I did the dot grid paper. And for dot grid, it was perfect because I knew the size of the dot and I knew the maths. It was 5 millimeters away. But with this, I have no idea. I just want that many images in a frame. And that is what I have done there. Right, I can see a question I'm going to deal with at this point. You can do the basic maths in any number field, but you've still got to, if we go to this one and have a look at it, let's take that up there and get that in situ. So what you could do with that is down here, you could move it by adding to it. But what are you adding to it? Well, you'd have to add the width to it. So in this dialog box, if you wanted to say that the X position is 50 plus something else, so let's say, let's add 50 plus 40, it will move it 90. But I don't know how far I need it moving. So it's far faster not to bother with the maths unless the maths is really simple, like it was with the dot grid. Right, so let's get rid of that. So that is why that is faster. I mean, they've not taken that feature away. If you think about it, if they'd added the move duplicate and felt the other option was completely deprecated, they would have taken it away. But there are circumstances when that is still far faster. Right, so that is how we do the margins, and within the margins, the guides that we're using, the grid that we've created. Right, let's do a different one. So I'm whipping through these. I'll probably get a question at some point. Shouldn't these be master pages? Yes, they should. But there's only so much I can show you in one session. So that is something I will put in the advanced one. Saying that a lot, aren't I? But it's true. The other thing is, if you were to download a template, if you're using InDesign, I've yet to see an InDesign template that uses the master pages. Every page is just a page. There are the handful of templates I've seen for Affinity. Every page is a standard page, it's not a master page. I don't know why people would create a template like that, but the fact is they do. And if you're going to use an InDesign template and convert it, you are going to have no master pages. You're going to have standard pages. So the principle of designing a master page and a standard page is identical. And it really is. And you can convert one to the other. But I'm just doing them as layouts today for the quickest, really, rather than go through and be making master pages. And plus the fact, there's probably people here who don't know what a master page is. Watch a video on master pages. You know, I think that ran for 2 hours. So there's a lot to understand about it. And you may just need to make some layouts and you're not bothered about whether you're making 20 layouts, but based on the same master page. Right, so let's do another layout in here. So I'm going back to my guides and I'm turning on my margins. We will have 25 for this one. But this time I want 3 columns and I want that 4 millimeter gutter there as well. Now, even though I want 3 images, there may be an argument to put in 6 columns. So I'll do 3 and then I'll do 6 and show you why. There's the first one. So if I wanted to create a triptych in here, which is 3 images side by side, that is very straightforward to do. And there's the first one. We will drag that because they're all the same size for the second one. We'll Control and Command and J for the last one. And there they are. And obviously I would do the same and get these over this side. Now that is presupposing that you want 3 images in it. Right, I'll do another one of those. So we'll go back to View and Guides and we will do 3 columns. No, we're going to do 6, aren't we? I'm going to show you, I'll show you that first. Right, and set that to 4. And you'll notice that that has gone full screen because I haven't set the margins. But as soon as I set the margins, the guides are constrained to the margins. Right, it doesn't matter whether you have 3 or 6. Because if you drag this down, 2 of those will fit over what's 1 in this one will fit over 2. Now, there may be a benefit to you doing that if you decide when you've done the layout, I need that picture to be bigger, right? So let's say you've done this layout like that, and you put a picture in here. So let's get a picture that would work for that. Let's say that champagne one. That might work for it. So you move that into place, but then decide that you would like that wider. Now, with this one, that one isn't like that one is not in place, is it? Right. With this one, you haven't got anywhere to take it, but with this one, you have. You delete that one in the middle, you can just make this wider and do a 50-50 split without changing your guides. It would also give you the opportunity to have an image like that, which was even wider than that. You could take that out to the 4 point and then bring this in and have a very skinny image next to it. So although you think you want 3 in the layout, it might be more flexible if you added 6 columns, and that gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can do, but you're still constrained to the same margins and your layout is still symmetrical. You're not having the problem that you've moved it and now it's moved a centimetre to the right. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. The other reason that you might want to do that, so we'll do exactly the same here. We will go to 6. 6 is actually something that I use a lot because it works quite nicely with that. So we'll set that to 4. We'll move down to the margins, make those 25. Right, this time I'll grab an image. So we'll grab that one, but we'll have that set to 1/3 of it. And then, just for the quickest, I will drag that down there. So we've got an image on the left, an image on the right, but in the middle, I'd like some text. So I can draw the text out in the middle, and just so we can see it, I will put some filler text in it, like that. So we could do that. And of course, it remains flexible. There is nothing to stop us with this doing a kind of inverse of that, which is having text on the left and text on the right. But I will draw that out to show you a feature. So I'll draw that second one out and we'll put an image in the middle. So it's a variation on the same layout. It doesn't look odd. It gives you just enough difference between the layouts for it not to start looking repetitive. So in there, we will add that image and we will move that so we can see the bottle. There we go. Now, if I've got text in this frame, I'm probably going to want text in that frame, and it probably follows on. And you can set that up before you even have the text by clicking the triangle, which turns the source frame blue. When I hover over the destination frame, that text will now flow from one frame to another. There's nothing to stop you having it do that from this frame into this frame either, if that's what you wanted, by selecting that, clicking on that, and clicking on the next one. And although that hasn't changed much, it changed sufficiently that I can see it is actually linked together. And then just for good measure, so we can see what that would look like with an image in it, let's just drag and drop an image into there, like that. So then you have a completely different layout. Right, text, working with text. It does not have the option when you are working with text to put a header across multiple columns. I mention that because a lot of people hyperventilate over it because it does in InDesign. Well, it doesn't in Affinity. We've been waiting 11 years. Can't see it coming anytime soon, but you never know. If you wanted to put some kind of heading in it, then you would need to make space for it. So I would, I probably do it different in terms of the layout. So if I go to my guides, what I would probably do with this, I'll probably stick with the 6 and 1 row with 4 millimeters, but with the margins, we'll say 25, but the top one, so take the link away, make the top one 50, and that gives us somewhere to put it. Right, so let's say we want to do that and put some text in. You have two different types of text. You have artistic text where you can literally draw it out. So let's say this is an April wedding. Right, not the best text. You do with something a little bit fancier than that. I tell you what I'll use. I will use Affinity. This will give us major problems, right, which we'll fix. Right, so let's say with that, that's what I want, like that. Now, it's not a problem as far as I'm concerned. Let me just line this up. I'll go to the centre with it. That is descending into the photograph. That's absolutely fine. But one thing to think about is if that was higher than that, be careful. This is your text safe area, and a font like that could easily shoot off into it. So make sure that that is brought down so it is within your text safe area. Now that text being artistic text, the good news with it is that you can stretch that out so it fits the gap. You still will have to bring it down, but artistic text is made that you can stretch it and play around with it. If you've got a lot of text like you have here, then I would suggest you would be far better with frame text, which is this option here. So artistic text, bearing in mind we are in the layout scenario here, that is your artistic text, and the next tool but one is your frame text tool. And that is what would enable you to add frame text to it, which you saw me do on the other one like that. Right, once you start working with text like this, you're going to need to consider, what if you wanted an image kind of overlapping text or something like that? So I'll take this one here, and we have text in a frame there, or we will have shortly. So let's say we wanted that image over there. So we'll put an image in, so we have an image so we can see something. What have we got that we've not used? Oh, I think I've got just the image here. This will set the chat off. Right. Oh, it didn't add it, did it? No, because it's text. What are you saying, woman? Right, what I need is to have a frame. So let's put a frame on here. Let's say it's about that size. And I want to put the headdress in it, the crown in it. Now, I may need to make that a little bit bigger so I can see it, like that. And I may decide I only need it that width. Right, so far so good. And I want that aligned to the middle, so because my snapping's turned on, I can do that. But this frame is going to have my text in it. So I'll use filler text again. So insert filler text. Why are you not inserting filler text? Come on. You know you want to. Right, there we go. Again, it probably needs to be a little bit more wedding-y, doesn't it? I think Times New Roman might work quite nicely with it, particularly if it's italic. Right. Now, there's the problem. We've put this image, it is on the top, but the text is going behind it. So while the image is in the right place, with that text, I need to make sure here that I've got some wrap on it. Now, the wrap option, I think, is fairly important, and it used to be available from the toolbar. Before 47 people write in and tell me that I can change the toolbar, I know I can. But if I do, then my toolbar wouldn't match anybody watching the video. So because of that, I haven't changed my toolbar, and I would need to go and find the wrap options. I use a different method for that, which I have talked about on several videos. But there are the text wrap options. I do believe you'll find them in text somewhere. Here we go, text wrap. So show the edit the wrap outline or show the text wrap settings, which will give you this dialog box. Right, with that dialog box, it should be front and center. Right, with my image selected, there is no wrap at the moment. And you have a range of wrap options. You can jump, you can make it go square, you can have it tight, you can even make the text appear on the inside, which is just weird. And if you think that's weird, Edge is even weirder. But in this case, it's a square image, so it isn't going to matter if I say square or tight. Either of those would work. Right, I apply that to the image, not the text. It's wrapping around the text. The text is wrapping around the image, but you apply it to the image. Now, certain things happened at that point based on the distance from the text at the bottom. So if that's a little bit close, you could increase it. Again, we have that link icon, the chain. So if I wanted to make that more, at the moment you can see it's moving on the left. To get these to move, to do anything, so the bottom pushed down by 6, it has to be quite considerable. I've not really found much of a need to put more than 3 in. However, one situation that you might is if you look at this, I've got some text here and it's kind of orphaned. It's on a line of its own. Whereas, if that was, it's not going, is it? No, it's the position of it. It would solve itself if I moved it up. It would solve itself if I moved it down. But then my image wouldn't align to the middle. And that could make this layout look odd by comparison to another layout. So one option would be to take the link out of this and add space to the bottom until that wraps round. And that is the kind of thing that you might do with this. Most of the time you want consistency in the wrap or things look strange. But if you have a situation like that where there's just one line of text and it looks odd, then that is the circumstance where no one would even notice you've done it, but they'd certainly notice if you didn't because the text doesn't look right. And what you would do with that then, once you've done this, if you then decide that, yeah, I think I do want that bigger, as you move this, it is twanging, and now we've got an odd one at the bottom. So you do have to keep making changes to this depending on where these images actually are. That one does work fine. There's 3 lines at the bottom there. But that is what you can do with the text wrap. Right, let me have a look at this. So we've done the headings. We've got the text wrap. We've done that. Right, I've got one file here that I did as a layout before. Right, now we're moving away from just standard layouts here being fairly basic. So let me show you this layout that I did. That's not it, in case you're wondering. The layout's down here. Right, let's have a look at that layout. Oh, it's this layout. Let me see this layout. Right, there we go. Right, creating something like that. So if you'd seen a layout like that and you thought, I want to create that, that's what I want to do. Right, you may be tempted to try and replicate it. Let's have a look at what we've actually got and do it totally the wrong way. Well, you look at it and there's an image. Now, this presupposes that you've got the image, doesn't it? You also need some kind of layout with that to get that right. But it's not the layout with this that we're concerned about. It's not what size these are. Right? It's how quickly can we re-edit that if we need to. So you're going to try and replicate that. And you may think, well, there's a blue border here around this. And there's an image as well. Right. Well, I do have the image. So let's go and get the image. There we go. Right. So I can certainly drag the image on. Is that the right way to do it? No. Never drag an image on when you can use a frame. Right, because the frame should go into the bleed, which that one is not doing. So let's add that to it. Right. You'll notice that we've got a border on here. That's because the last time I did this, I had a border. But I don't particularly need a border, so I'm going to take the border off that one. Right. Then what we've got the lady on top of that. You can put a picture on top of another picture. Very simply, like that. I'm going to get that centered and go and find the image of the lady. Which is that one? I know, that's not black and white, is it? No, not yet, it's not. Right, so let's do that. And then the final thing we need to do, and again, I'm not concerned about placement with this. I really don't care. Just eyeballing that, making it about right. And then putting it in over here. I will line them up. But I'm not bothering to show you the things that I've shown you 20 times already in terms of lining these up. So as long as they align with each other, that is good enough for me. Hang on, it's duplicating them. I'm just trying to center them like that. Right, not bad. I've got this blue thing over here. Well, that's fairly straightforward. It's just a shape, isn't it? Or is it? Right, well, it's the right colour, so we're getting somewhere with that. Right, and then I would need to put into here 4 images. So I'm just going to grab 4 random but pinkish images. So we've got that one with the bottle in as well. And we will drag that in, and one more. Oh, how about that cake? Right, there we go. Now, not bad, but definitely not the way I did the first one. And I will show you one of the differences. But I'm doing this to show you, look at this. There's a border on these images. And the border is a complementary colour to the image that we have over here. Right, so how do we do that? Well, you can go to a particular picture frame, and you can, in there, why is that doing that? That's better. Right, with that selected, you can put a stroke on it. So if we go up to the stroke and put a stroke on it, change the colour, let's make that a bluish colour, like that. But the problem is you'd have to do that repeatedly. Luckily, in addition to text styles that we talk about a lot, there are object styles in Affinity. So with that selected, that is a little bit too much, isn't it? But I need you to be able to see it, but we'll make it 6. We have text styles, which identifies them as being text styles. Nothing to do with what we're doing right now. But we also have styles. These are object styles. It would be nice if it said object styles, but that's what they are. And what this enables you to do is have a recipe that you apply to a shape. You can put it on text if you want, but it doesn't end well. So all I want is to be able to quickly apply this style to these others. Now, there's many ways I could do that. I could do it manually. I could go to Edit and Copy, then click on another one, and it's thinking about it, and go back to Edit, and this time in the Paste option, choose to paste the style. Could do that. But they wouldn't automatically update. Now, with what we've got so far in here, this one is formatted perfectly. So if from the drop-down in here, I say, add style from selection, and I now have a style with that colour on the border, which means if I select the others and just select, click, select, click, select, click. Great. Now, if you know text styles, probably getting quite excited at that point and thinking, wow, an automatically update. Guess what? They don't automatically update. I know they do in InDesign. I am painfully aware of that. They do not automatically update in here, which gives us multiple problems with our layout, doesn't it? Because these won't automatically update. There's no chance that this is changing colour, and that would probably need to be done by hand as well. So we've not made a bad job dealing with that. The one thing I didn't show was how I got that to black and white, which is in the layers. We have our options in here. Black and white is one of them. It bleaches it far too much. If you look at the comparison between the bottom one and the top one, you do need to make a few changes here. Just by dialing that back, it brings the detail back in her face. Right, so now that's black and white. So, yeah. Still no t-shirt though. Because the background's gone black and white and that should have been blue. There's so much wrong with it. Where do we start? Now, the reason that I've shown you that is, yes, you'd get away with it if you went back in and you sorted all of this out, right? Which you could do. I'd need to be masking, so let's leave it alone. Right, but I thought with this one, you know, if the bride wants that colour, that's fine. But these images are pink. And I think if instead of blue was the accent colour, it had pink, that would be great. But that's going to take a long time if we're in here playing around and fiddling, isn't it? That's not great. But watch this. This blue one that was already there, if I go in to my colours in here, in my swatches, I've got a document palette and I have a primary colour. and it's blue. If I right click on that, I can edit the fill. But when you look at that, what's blue? That image was blue when I dragged it on, and there's this border, but we don't know where that's coming from. And we've just applied this, but you can't update an object style, and we never knew where that was from in the first place. But if I just change that to pink, everything changes, including the stuff that can't be automatically updated. We don't say I can't here. Ah, no, we say why can't I? So now everything is pink. But you couldn't do that with this. These didn't change. What did I do? Make that magic happen. Right, let's have a look at that then. So we'll come down to this one and we will do it again. Now that black and white adjustment there, I need it constrained to her. So we'll put it inside her layer, and now we've got blue in the background. We've got blue there, we've got pink here, we've got blue there, good grief. Right, how do we fix that? Right, what I'll do is I will just duplicate that down here, so we've got it in the right place. I can even duplicate her, right, because that is the starting point for this. Can I duplicate these? I will, purely for speed, but I'm going to leave that pink sidebar. We're not going to have that. So we need to make some magic here, so this can all be updated like the pink one. Right, how do we do that? Right, first thing to think about is this thing in here. We know that it came from a style, but the style can't be automatically updated. So it wouldn't make any difference if we deleted that style. It wouldn't delete it from anything else. The trick to this is, when I formatted it with the colour here, I did not format it with the global colour from the document palette. Let's rectify that for a start. Once I go through and I apply that to it, whether it is from a style or not, that will now automatically update. So far, so good. Right. This image, the image itself actually changed to pink. And you saw that that's just an image. This sidebar thing updated. How do we do that? Because it's actually an image. And there is a trick to that, which is we go into here. These layers all have little symbols telling you what kind of layers they are. Most of these are pictures. If we go up to our layer, we have a whole range of layers that we can add here and things that we can do. Now, what options you have available in here depend on the studio that you have active. What I'm looking for is, which is why I use this, I don't want to select the same. I want a fill layer. Crying out loud. Where are we? New fill layer. Right, it's under pixels. So there is pixels, new fill layer. Right, that gives us this. Still no t-shirt, but it is the right colour. You'll notice it's used this primary colour. And actually, it's not a million miles away from being finished, believe it or not. Right, it does need a little bit of help though. So it's put the layer in the right place. If we look where it is over here, so back on this one, we had a background, we had the fill. Right, we've got the background, but we're not seeing it at the moment. And this actually needed to be black and white for this to work properly. So in there, I will do exactly what I did before, which is make it black and white. Doesn't need anything doing with that. So the background is now black and white. Above that, we can actually put that inside there. In fact, we better not. Hang on, which one is it? Am I in the right place? I'm in the right place there. Let's leave it. Right, let's turn this on. Right, why is that not working? Well, we want to use the colour of this fill layer. Notice that the fill layer has done more than we could imagine. It's a fill layer, but it's actually gone into the bleed as well, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Right, this one, the white did not go into the bleed. It didn't need to. But we haven't got a white background on this, and we can't see the image because we need to change the blend mode. Now let's go down to colour. And now we've changed a blue image, first to black and white, and then allowed it to change it to pink. Right. These do have the right border on them, but we can't see it. We can't see it because the background is pink. So we do the inverse of what we would probably be doing, which is I will add that onto there going into the bleed and format that as white and put it behind all of the other images. Right, now we can see everything. Again, that white there does not need to have a pink outer on it. That just looks weird. Right, we've now actually finished it. So what we can do at that point is go into our primary colour and edit that primary colour. And as we edit the primary colour, now obviously it's changing on the blue one because that had some on it as well, but we can change that to any colour we like. Even our Shrek green, we can do that. And it doesn't matter that the object styles don't update. With one global colour and some clever manipulation, you can change the whole thing, which is great that you can do that because the client is going to take one look at the blue and say, I like the blue originally, now I don't like the blue because it's clashing with the pink. So could we have it pink? And you literally, as you're sat there, can say, yes, there you go. You can have it pink. What shade of pink would you like? And the whole thing changes. Right. What else have I got? I had one more that I did the last time that I did this. So let's do that one because it's fun. Right. I will save that. Create new file. Should we do our A4 photo book and we'll put it over a double spread here. So this is just an example of a layout because yes, you can put photos in a photo book. We actually got given a photo book a few years back, marking a year that Mike was in charge of something. And it was okay, wasn't it? But oh, they could have done so much more with it because it's not just the photos, it's the memories as well. So you've seen you can put text with it. But this is Affinity, and you want to use Affinity to create your photo book rather than do it the easy way with the applications from the print services so you can customize it. So what I'm going to do with this layout is I'm going to put a full page picture. In fact, I did have it on that side, but I think I'm going to put it on the other side this time. I think it'd work better on that side. Right, and what I'm going to put in there is a world map. So it's an Affinity Designer file. I will get that on there. Can I see where I need to see? It looks like I can, but I'm going to move it that way a bit because I'm not going to rush her. Right, so there's a map. I also, on this side, so again, think what you're doing here. You're making a photo book that people want to look at. So we need to make it interesting. So I will put some text up here. So this is going to be our trip. And our trip was, last time we did it, it was London to Seattle. I even priced up a flight, frightened myself to death. Not even kidding, it was £960. Right, so because it's artistic text, I can just stretch it to fit. But all right, all very well stretching it to fit. It's better if you go in and choose the font first, and Trajan works well for that because each font is slightly different. So I will put that in there and move that down like that. Right, the next thing I'm going to do here is put in a photo of leaving London and a photo of Seattle. So I just need there a picture frame. So let's put that in and another picture frame. And then those two I would centre like that. Right, let's see what they've got in here, although I do have some. So let's see what they've got of London. What says London? Or did mine say London better than that? I think either the I or Westminster. One or the other. Did I have? Oh, I think I had Westminster. Right, so we're going from London to Seattle. So there's Westminster. And this is what I had for Seattle. So let's pop Seattle in there. Right, and put that. We won't have it in the middle. We'll have it slightly off centre, like that. Right, what makes these things interesting is maybe putting in a scan of the ticket or some text, other little photos dotted about, but the map is handy. So, the reason we're going from London and not Manchester is there's no direct flights either, on top of everything else. I don't know why people bother travelling, but they do. Right, so we need to go from London to sort of somewhere over here, although I'll probably land us in Alaska left alone. But to do that, I'm going to get the pen tool and say that London is there and Seattle is round about here somewhere. Don't argue, it's reasonable. Right, so I've got the line. I zoom in, it's a very tiny line and it's black. And it would be far better if it was red, so we can really see it. And made it a bit thicker. So let's do that. Right, now, thing is with these lines, they may also have endings on them, couldn't they? They could have start and end here. So you could actually put arrows on it as well. And those arrows will change depending up here what you do with it, like that. Now, it doesn't really make much sense at the moment to have one on the London end, does it? So which one was the London end? Like that, because we're going from London to Seattle. Right, other thing we might want to do with this, because you don't tend to see it looking like that, is you might want to put a bend in it. And whenever you have a shape like this, you have a tool underneath this one. So you have the node tool. So this is a tool you use a lot, the move tool, but the node tool actually allows you see the little curve underneath the mouse pointer? That would enable you to stretch that up and curve it like that. I know it looks weird because we've got this grey thing appearing. That's a fill, believe it or not. You just need to go into here and take it away. And now it's just a line. With the line selected at this point, let's go back to the stroke because it doesn't tend to be a solid line either. And you can have different line types in here. So I've turned on the solid line type, but we could have a dashed line type. Problem with that is, looks like a string of sausages. Looks like a string of sausages because of what is set in the bottom half of this that used to have a label that doesn't anymore, and I can't remember what the label was. But ultimately, what it's showing you is the size of this. So if I say I want those to be 3, we get bigger sausages. But the next bit is specifying a gap. So if I make that 3 as well, now we've got a gap between it and it looks great. And another thing we might want to put on there is they usually have a little plane, don't they? Which I don't want to put in that frame. So let me pop it up there. Come on. Where you go. It there. Oh, it's still putting it in there. Right, okay. We need to lock things. So let's lock the map. Let's lock the lot. Then it can't do anything wrong, can it? Ah! Let's outwit it. Right, you're trying to be far too helpful. Don't do that. There we go. There's the plane. Now, obviously, there's a problem with the plane. Plane's going the wrong way. We know we're going to Seattle, but that's going the other way. With this shape, you could rotate it and there would be no harm done. But if the shape wasn't a plane, you could have something upside down by now. So an alternative to that, just select it and you have options up here to flip it. So we'll just flip it horizontally and tweak it slightly like that. And I think it would probably be a good idea if we made that match. So we'll make that. Are we selected here? Oh, we are. But something clever. Right, this could hoist you by your own petard. You've selected it and you've applied red and it's not red. Why is it not red? Well, let's try purple. No, it's not purple either. Right, what's going on? And what is going on here is, don't flip round the other way, that this is an embedded SVG, which is indicated by the symbol. So if we double click that, there's the plane. Select it in there, make it red in there, and it will ripple through to in here. So it was because it was an SVG. You have an alternative to that if you don't want to use an embedded file, which is open it, copy it, close it. We can delete it from there, paste it in, and now it's not an embedded thing, it's a curve. So from there, we could flip it horizontally and rotate it, and now we don't need to open it up and edit it if we want to change the colour. So those are your options with that, but we wanted that red. And now you've got a very interesting layout. What I would do with the bottom half of this is put scans of the tickets in and things like that. Now, that is one of the main reasons that you would be using Affinity rather than these easy ways to do it. Use this plugin, use this template. No, don't do that. Use our app. But in their app, you would not be able to do anything like that. That's the benefit of using Affinity or InDesign or any other application. I mean, they even suggested Word. And if you've got the rest of your life to make your photo book, then by all means, try using Word. But this app in the layout mode is absolutely perfect for it. So, what else have I got in here? I think we just now need to look at the output. So we have a couple of things in here, don't we? Why is that? I'm going to call that one layout, because I should have multiple files open and it's not showing them to me. I could print that one, but let's print this one. Yes, it's not showing me my multiple files, so something's wrong with that. Right, let's use this one and work on the output. So obviously on this, I would have a front cover. I thought I'd put a placeholder for a front cover. Did I? No, I clearly didn't. Right, let's get one. And just pop an image in there. So go and choose a wedding image. And oh, that one that we've already used would look great on the front cover. So let's put that in. Right. So we've now got this. We've worked to the specification. Now it comes time to create the PDF to send to print. So File, Export, and you have a whole range of export options in here. Now, at the moment, this is set to print, PDF for print. Each of these is a heading. Most of them have multiple exports underneath. Now, obviously, that one only has 2. Some of them don't have any. Most of them have some. So when you go to PDF, there's a whole range of them, including this one down here, which is the one that I send to print. So I already have been through this, but let me take you through the options that you've got. You will have everything apart from the bottom one. Right, digital, high quality or small size, is important if you are creating a digital photo book. And if you are creating a digital photo book, one thing you can do with a digital photo book is have clickable links all around the place. But this is going to print. We've got a bleed on it. It's going to print. Right, you do have an option for press ready. You do have various other options that would work. But what I did for my Printed Easy was I went through the specification from the company so I could see exactly what I needed. Now, did I have that in there? I don't think I did. Right, so I'll talk you through it here. But what I had in here, it needs to be, you need to say whether you want the spreads or whether you want the pages. Most of the time, it wants all the pages as individual pages. My printer does. Your print service may vary, but that's what mine wanted. Right, this takes forever to calculate and just keeps going on with its little self. It did need rasterization of unsupported properties, because if I don't rasterize them, it isn't going to print out looking decent at all. Right, I'm moving down. Do I want to downsample the images? Only if they're above a certain size, and you get to say which size that is. Again, that is going to depend on the spec from your print service. As I'm moving down, notice that I've got CMYK, which is picked up from the settings I used initially. My ICC profile, which is how it's going to print out, is my FOGRA 39, because that's what my print service uses. You have the option to choose different page types, if you remember, different coatings. So that one is really important. It needs to match what your print service have told you. Right, then we've got, do you want to, all of these options here, the ones that are there for digital are your hyperlinks and your bookmarks. They don't matter for print. Not even if you've got special paper, they don't print out. So you don't need that. You will need to include the bleed. And what I needed to include was everything apart from colour bars, including page information. If you remember our spec, this was our spec, fonts embedded. So notice we've done the 300 DPI, we've done the CMYK, we've done the FOGRA 39, we've done the embedded, and it needs to be a press quality PDF, which is what I'm in the middle of creating with all of these options on there. Right, keep going. You can put passwords on it if you want, but I don't see the need if you're sending it to a printer. And then you can create your output. So I will put that in today's session. We'll just call it wedding layout in there. Right. And it is exporting all of those pages as individual pages. Once it's finished strutting its little stuff, and the reason it's taking so long is those images were full quality. Some of them were sort of 12,000 pixels. It will create a large PDF. One of the things you're going to need to think about is the size of that PDF, because some have a limit. So this is saying it is 108 meg. So I'm going to open it, and that is what it looks like. So I've got my crop marks on it. I've got my titles at the top. I've got the date it was created. I've got all of the printer's marks, and as it's going through here, you can see everything is there, including all kinds. Everything it needs is there. That's going to head off like that. Now, I know not all of these are perfect, but there you go. That is what that looks like when it heads off. Yours will look different. It will. There is no two ways about it. It depends on the print service. But that is how you create it. It's a matter of taking your specification twice, once initially when you're creating it, and then at the point that you are creating the output, the PDF, and just reference the fact that make sure your fonts are embedded, make sure that your quality is correct, make sure the colour and the coating is correct. So you will use that specification twice. Initially, when you're creating it, give yourself a good start, and at the end to make sure that your printout is perfect. Right, okay. I just follow what my printer says. Some will need it, some won't. It just depends. Just follow what it says. Right, I did mention a bonus, didn't I? Well, I've made plenty of layouts this week as I've been working through and creating this data. And I have a photo book layout collection for you. So this is where you will find it. And that is the QR code, and the URL is elainegiles.com/scp-products/photo book layouts for Affinity. I will show you what they look like. I actually have that here. So let's open that up, and that is what is in it. So here are the layouts. So what I've done is I've just used A4 because it really doesn't matter what size it is. It's the principle of it. You can see I've included a bleed. We've also got the guides on it, and the placeholders are there. So I've done a layout with 2 photos, one on each page. I've done one with 2 photos on each page. I put a triptych in there. Then we've got these, and the text flows through them, so you can play around with that and see how I've done it. I then did one where they went the other way. So I didn't show you that, but they're just a different shape. Then I've got one with the text at the bottom, and again, those text fields are linked. Then we've got a layout for you to play with. So if you wanted to test that power duplicate, you can use that. We have a full hero on there, so full panorama, and a couple of extras. And the last one there is the back page with a full colour on it. Okay, so Mike will put the link in the chat for that. And I will say that this session will be available on demand when YouTube have processed it. You will find all of my content at elainegiles.com. YouTube.com/elainegiles on this one, including the older sessions. So if you find some sessions that were for Affinity Publisher, they are still 99% relevant. Still. They've not taken away any features. Some are broken, but they've not taken any away. So you'll find all my Affinity stuff at Affinity with Elaine. This is a playlist that's on YouTube. And this playlist includes only the content for version 3, which at the moment goes back to, now when was that? 2nd of November, when we did everything you need to know to get started. So that was a little bit theoretical, and then there was a demonstration. Then we did the first layout, so creating your first layout. We took a detour to deep dive data merge, but people much preferred the calendar session. And then last week we did planner pages. This week, of course, it has been designing a photo book. If you have found that useful, then please give the video a like, which you can do live and you can do after the event. You could also subscribe, that would be great. I would appreciate that. Now, comments. We say that if you make it this far, we're going to have a little bit of a teaser. Right, you can't put comments on the video until we've finished live streaming. I don't know why, it's just a YouTube thing. But comments are really, really important. So if you are with us live, wait till the end, and when we've stopped, you can put a comment on it. If you're watching on demand and you've made it this far, congratulations. What we do is we have an icon, different one every time. If you've made it this far, then you'll see the icon. All you need to do is put a comment and just put the icon. If you want to say thanks and hello, feel free. The icon this week is the camera icon, unsurprisingly. You can feel free to put it in the chat now if you like, but it's more important to go back and put it in the comments later. So, what have we got next time? Oh, I've been a busy bee. I have. So today was quite theoretical in terms of setting it up for success from the beginning. But there's lots you can do in terms of layout options. I demonstrated the London to Seattle one, but next time it'll be advanced techniques that you can use inside your photo book. So we are now past setting things up and fiddling with guides and safe areas. We're now into the sexy bit of layouts and how to do them amazingly. And that is what we will do next week. Also coming soon, because I've been asked for it, is a trifold. I was definitely asked for a trifold, so we'll be doing that as well. Right, I've been Elaine Giles. You can find me on the socials. I'm much busier on Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is getting quite quiet at the moment. So if you are on Blue Sky or you want to join me on Blue Sky is like Twitter used to be, nice and friendly, not toxic. So that's why I'm on Blue Sky, and I do post on Blue Sky. I'm not great on Facebook, and obviously I am on LinkedIn. Right, if you would like first notifications of everything that I do, then you need to go to elainegiles.com/VIP and sign up to the mailing list. If you are downloading the freebie, you don't need to sign up for the mailing list as well. You'll be added to the mailing list anyway. Right, just before we head off into Q&A, I've already got a question. So I thought I would do a demonstration of it, and now would be a good time to do that demonstration, wouldn't it? So this was a question that came in, and it was basically about captions. So let me get back to my files. And I definitely had one in here. You've disappeared. Oh, come on. In here somewhere. Ah, there we go. Pre-show questions. Right, so it was, how can I have captions that move with the image and auto number? Oh, there's nothing like a challenge, is there? Right, so I built this file. You will notice in here there is a table of contents. All of the pictures are on page 1. Now, I know it might look like page 3 to you, but obviously the front cover is not page 1, and this table of contents page is not page 1. If we zoom in, that is page I, because it's the table of contents. But this is page 1, and in here we have lots of dogs. The first two, they're ours. So this was Maya, my beautiful lad, and this is Lola, our lovely girl. The others are stock images, but they've all got little names, haven't they? You will notice that next to each one there is a number and a caption underneath. You can have that caption formatted however you want, but it doesn't work like Word. It's not clever. This is an image, that is a text box, and the two are grouped together. It's as good as it gets. Sorry about that. Not my decision. That was Canva's decision. So what we have over here is a group for each one of these dogs. But what is underneath the captions, we could actually in here, instead of table of contents, nothing to stop you saying table of captions, because that's exactly what they are. They're not headings. They are the captions that have been pulled through to the table of contents. Right, first thing, this is a block. This is the group that represents each one of these. So if I drag that, notice what happens at the bottom. Caption 13 becomes caption 14. And that one becomes 15, and that one becomes 16. So they are automatically updating. That is all to do with the style that is applied on here to this text. So this text has a style applied to it. Caption with number. If I go in and we edit that, you can see that in the bullets and numbering, this is where I have set that. So feel free to take a screen cap of that. And that is how you set it up. And the trick, I've called that step numbers, but that's because that's what it was called, right? You give the list a name and you make it global. And then say manual only. That's the trick to it. And that gives you a style, a text style, that makes each element that's formatted with it have a number, and the number follows on. And it doesn't matter if this goes across multiple pages, multiple chapters, doesn't matter. It will still add up properly. Right, they do work. So just to prove the fact that they do actually work, oh, I've got some cuteness here. Right, so I'm going to drag and drop an image in there. These are pups. That's more like my pup. Used to eat everything in sight, including printer toner, but that's a long story. Right, let's get that one in. And what else have we got? Oh, I've got that one there. So pop that in. And again, just move these around as needed. That one would make much more sense if it was bigger, like that. And finally, we'll pop him in with his lovely eyes. There we go. Move him down so we can see him. Right. Now, I've added these. So if I change these and we put puppy and biting. Oh, yes, I do a lot of that. Right, that can be stick. And that one can be eyes. What I'm doing is making sure that when we go to our table of captions, they can be updated. You'll notice it goes down to 13 caption. But if I click in it and go to my table of contents panel and I update it, everything gets updated. So in answer to the question that I already had, I think was from a lady called Sue, yes, you can. Downside is this is more manual than we would all like it, but it can be done. And how these captions get into here is the magic of the table of contents. So when I click in it and we look down here, notice it is ignoring the heading styles. I have told it to only include the captions with numbers. And that is what makes you a table of captions rather than a table of contents where Affinity decides what you're using. So that was our very, very first question. And that was the answer to it. So at that point, I'll open up so Mike can read all the other questions out to me.
Okay. First one is, can I make, this is from Team Western Productions, can I make my own book cover also, like hardback and Kindle?
Yes, you can. What you would need for the Kindle depends on the spec of the book that you're making for Kindle. In the advanced session, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to make a wraparound cover. Now, if it's a hardback and it's not a separate wraparound, you will get, as part of the spec, the sizes it needs to be in the safe areas. So just follow that through. What I will show you is what Affinity can do, and that was only added in February this year, in terms of a multi-page spread rather than just 2 pages. So it used to be hideous how to do it. Now it is much, much easier. That's the first demo in the next session.
Okay. Tony says, can you have 2 table of contents for the same text?
With the same text. Oh, yes, you can have...
For the same text.
For the same text. Yes, you could. So if you had a book and it had dogs in it, and you wanted a table of contents of the dogs, and there were multiple breeds, but you also wanted a table of Samoyeds, yes, you can do that. How you do that is with the style and how you include it. So you've just seen in here that I said caption with number. So I only included one style, but you can include multiple styles. So if I had another style I wanted included, it's a simple matter of just putting a heading in it. So if I wanted the heading 1 and 2 included, I could do that. And you can take styles away. So it's all done with the styles in here. So all you would do is create a second table of contents and include the caption with number. And that would give you exactly the effect that you're looking for.
Okay. Ashira says, can you change the text style to fix the orphan lines? I imagine you're not covering it in this video to keep it going from into the weeds.
Yes, you can. You're still going to have to manually eyeball it at the end. But yes, the problem I have when I'm demonstrating the layout features in Affinity is everything pulls together. It's not like if you're editing a photo and you have no need to change the colour, then you don't have to talk about it, you don't have to know about it, don't have to think about it. But with the layout option, everything needs to line up. All of your docs need to be in a row. So the page size needs to be correct, the margins need to be safe, the safe areas need to be correct. Everything is included. So I didn't today touch text styles at all. Not even, apart from that captions one at the end, which needed a text style to make it work. But yes, you could fix it like that, but I would still eyeball it just to make sure. But yes, you could.
Okay, Ashira also said thanks for the fix for colouring SVGs, because they had the same problem last night.
Just in time then. Yeah, I don't mind if it's an SVG. I don't mind if it's embedded, but some people don't like embedded stuff like that. It could be that you're handing that off to a designer that doesn't even know that you can embed stuff. So yeah, there's just multiple ways to do it. I just had that as an icon and it just happened to be an SVG. And when you drag an SVG in, it embeds it rather than shows you the curves.
Okay, there's one more which isn't directly related to this session, although it could be, I don't know. Will you please explain how to create a double exposure effect in Affinity? Thank you.
Oh, right. That's sort of the photo side of it. So no, I wasn't going to show that in here. That would probably be a separate video, but I can do. If you want to give me any more information about what it is you're trying to achieve, I can make the demo relevant.
That was from Reaching Higher 247.
Okay.
That's it. That's the end of the questions.
No more questions. Good grief.
No
We normally have more questions than that.
Somebody says, hi there, Ms. Elaine. I'm sorry for my bad English. Can you do a tutorial on how to create a company profile with Affinity?
What are you looking to include in the company profile? That sounds like maybe, are you looking for a brand guide? Or is it like a portfolio for a company? I mean, yes, I can do that. It's a standard document, and then within that, it would have certain elements. So I've certainly seen, done lots of company reports and stuff like that. So yes, I could do that.
Okay.
And you never need to apologise for your English at all.
Right, question from Ignacio. Apologies if you've already covered this. I don't think you have. Would we follow some of these steps you shared to create a flip book?
If you're doing it in terms of you want to do a layout and then you're passing that over to an application that's going to turn it into a flip book, then yes. One of the advanced things that you can do, even with a company, a print service that don't offer, like Blurb offers their own apps and stuff like that, even if you have a service that don't. So I think many moons ago, we went into Asda and got like a price list. And Asda's a supermarket in the UK. And most stores that are big enough have like a camera department, photographic department. And they will create you photo books. How they do it, all you need to provide them with is the JPEGs. So a lot of people just give them the photos. Now, I think that's madness because they're going to be cropped and squished in all kinds of ways. So I think it's dangerous if you just give them photos that you want including. But what I did do was have a word with them and say, okay, I can see they do tell you what size is best. So they give you a ratio. So I said, if I made some images that were that ratio, but they were actually page layouts, would that work in your system? And they said, yep, absolutely. So you could just export this as JPEGs and then hand them off to a service. Now, if you're going to do that, you probably don't need all the printer's marks on it or anything. You just need a JPEG and make sure that everything is within a safe area that you deem to be safe. So you don't want things right at the edge or you'll find people cut off. But that is one way that you can do it. And the benefit of that is if you design the book in that way, if you then do want a flip book and you can use the same size, you can use exactly the same source material. So that is going to depend on the app that makes the flip book. But I would say, yes, you could do that. The techniques that I've talked about are absolutely spot on for that. Got anything else?
Yeah, Ashira says, hex grid from last time in relation to the planner pages.grid. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I said I'd have a look at it. I haven't had the chance to have a look at it, but I will.
Okay.
I have a note of it. I will.
MD Graphics says, apologies, I've just joined. Can one have a table of contents and a table of captions at the same time?
Yes, you can. Let's see if I could show you that very quickly. So that's our table of captions. Let's pop it sideways. What we'll do, shrink it down. You'd probably have the captions over there, wouldn't you? Right, I don't have in here much else in the way of content, but I could quickly create some pages. So let's add in a few more pages. And what I'll do with these pages is just put a heading on them. So I will add a text box to the thing, and we'll put in here, put in Samoyed breeders. That's always a good one, isn't it? Samoyed breeders. Right, it's formatted that using the footer style, which is neither use to man nor beast. So let's take it back over there, and let's make it a heading. So Samoyed breeders. Right, and let's do exactly the same in here. So what I'll do, just for speed, is copy this and change the heading on it. So into there we go. Right, let's have Samoyed puppies. How many Samoyed things can I have? Right, playful Sammies. Or Samoyeds digging. Right, let's have Samoyeds playing. There we go. Right, so these are formatted with a heading 1. It doesn't matter how they're formatted, but it does make sense that they are headings if you want them in a table of contents. So I've got two things happening here. I have headings on pages 2, 3 and 4, which are physically 4, 5 and 6, and I've got the captions and they're all on page 1. So on my table of contents / table of captions, what I would do here is have a heading that's totally separate for my table of contents. And then I would put on a frame here to hold my next table of contents. Right, let's make sure it all lines up or I'll get into trouble. Right, let's head off into there. Right, so in here, what I want to do is insert a table of contents, which is table of contents insert. Right, now you may be thinking, just a minute, how did it know to do that? Whoa. Right, by default, when you make a new table of contents, it looks for the heading styles, and I had used the heading styles, and that is why they automatically came through. With this one, I didn't. So if you need to change it, then do what I did, which is enable the captions and take away the headings. And now that one matches that one. But in this circumstance, I want the heading 1s and the heading 2s, and I don't want the caption numbers. And that is how you have multiple tables of contents in any file. It doesn't matter if this is a company report, if it's a photo book, anything like that. It doesn't matter at all. That is how you do it. You'll notice that they look the same in terms of the styles. How you format the styles, don't go looking for the table of contents styles in your text styles unless you are in the table of contents, at which point everything else disappears and the styles for your table of contents are listed. So this one is saying table of contents 2, because this is the second table of contents in the file. This one is saying table of contents 1, because this is table of contents 1. You look over here, you can see this as well. So we have TOC 2, we have TOC 1, the styles it's using. As you move around in here, you will have different settings based on the table of contents, and all your table of contents are listed at the top. So yes, it can be done. It's just, in a way, I feel quite sorry for Affinity. To give you the ultimate flexibility, they have given you the ability to create as many table of contents as you like. But that comes at a price in terms of people find it complicated because it's not a tick box exercise. Now, if you're in Word, you have an option to create a table of contents and a table of figures and a table of captions and a table of anything else you like. But all they've done, Microsoft, is create sort of 5 for you instead of 1. What Affinity have done is said, well, by default, it's going to use the headers, but, go for your life. You can do what you like. But the problem is people aren't aware that you can have multiple tables of contents because it's not really obvious. It would be obvious if there was an option to insert a table of captions and a table of figures and everything worked. But obviously this is what we've got. But it is quite flexible. It's just initially, I think you will probably find it confusing. But yes, it can be done and it's not that difficult. Because that file wasn't even set up to do that. And you've seen me do it in a couple of minutes. So yes, it can be done. Do we have anything else?
No,
or is that it?
That is it.
Okay, that is it. Well, thank you for being with us. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I hope you intend to come back next week when we're looking at advanced photo book techniques. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we'll both hopefully see you next time. In the meanwhile, stay safe, guys.